You close your eyes, and in the stillness behind your lids, a mirror begins to form. Not the kind that reflects your face, but one that reflects existence itself. Everything in it is reversed. Left becomes right. Charge becomes opposite. Matter becomes antimatter. It is a quiet mirror. It makes no sound, but its reflection holds the hidden symmetry of the universe, and a question it never stops asking. In this gentle world of opposites, there is another version of you. Not a copy, not a clone. A twin made of something almost the same, and yet impossibly different. You are made of matter. Your twin is made of antimatter. Long ago, in the first flicker of time, the universe made both. Perfect pairs. For every electron, an anti-electron, called a positron. For every proton, an antiproton. Each opposite in charge, but equal in mass. Together, they were balanced like two arms of a scale. You imagine them forming, particle and antiparticle, in the heat and light of the newborn cosmos. Spinning into being, dancing together, drawn to each other like hands reaching. And when they touched, they vanished. Not into silence, but into light. Annihilation, the soft word for their union. Matter and antimatter meet, and in a flash, they become pure energy. You breathe in. It should have ended there. A world where everything cancels out. A world where there is only light. No atoms, no planets, no you. But something happened. Something tiny. A tremble in the mirror. For every billion pairs of matter and antimatter, there was one extra piece of matter. Just one. A leftover, a survivor. And from those survivors, everything you know was built. The air. The stars. All born from the smallest imbalance. And yet, the mirror remains. The world that should have been made of antimatter is still hiding in the fabric of what is. You cannot touch it. If you did, you and your mirror twin would vanish in a whisper of light. But scientists have found glimpses. Tiny flashes in particle colliders. A positron in a thunderstorm. Antiprotons curling through cosmic rays. They exist, gently, briefly, before slipping back into silence. You picture the mirror again. It floats like a lake in the dark. Still, smooth, waiting. And you ask, what would it be like to live in a universe where everything is reversed? Where your atoms hum with antimatter instead of matter? Would gravity feel the same? Would you fall in love the same way? Would water still be wet? The laws of physics say, perhaps yes. Antimatter behaves on the surface almost exactly like matter. It has mass. It has spin. It forms structures, in theory, just like you. But you have never seen an antimatter apple fall from an antimatter tree. Because such a tree would disappear the instant it met a single atom of matter. So the mirror never touches. It watches. It reflects. And maybe, just maybe, it remembers. As you drift deeper into stillness, you sense the gentleness of this question. Why does anything exist at all? Why did matter win by just one heartbeat over antimatter? You let the thought settle like dust in a beam of light. You are here because of a cosmic asymmetry, a tilt so small it is almost invisible. But it is real, and in that imbalance, a universe bloomed. Still, the mirror lingers. It does not vanish just because you looked away. Remains, patient, reflective, asking. And tomorrow, when you wake, it will still be there. Asking again. You feel your breath slow. You feel the warmth of your body. Matter, perfectly ordinary. You exist because something, somewhere, tipped the scale. Not by force, but by a whisper. And somewhere in the universe, that whisper may still echo. A trace. A flicker. A particle of antimatter drifting through cosmic silence. Waiting to tell its story. Waiting to be found. Waiting just beyond the mirror's edge. And if you listen gently, maybe you can hear it as it leads you into the next question. What happened when matter and antimatter met, and one began to fade? You lie still. Somewhere in the dark behind your eyes, A single particle comes to life. Small beyond comprehension. Light enough to float on nothing. But real as your breath. It hums with energy. Spins gently. It is matter, and it belongs to you. Now imagine its mirror. An equal and opposite. Born in the same moment, in the same breath of creation. But charged in reverse. This is its shadow, the antiparticle. Together, they are two sides of a coin spinning in space. If they meet, they vanish. Not into nothing, but into light, soft, bright, pure. You begin to see this pattern, not as destruction, but as a kind of quiet return. Matter and antimatter are not enemies. They are partners in a delicate, invisible rhythm. Always seeking, always drawn, always ending in a brief burst of radiance. In the beginning, this dance filled the cosmos. After the Big Bang, the universe expanded like breath rushing into lungs. It was fire and brightness and balance. For every proton, an antiproton. For every electron, a positron. The universe should have blinked into silence. But it did not. A mystery stirred in the balance. Somewhere, somehow, a few more matter particles survived. Just enough. A single seed of difference in a sea of symmetry. 1 part per billion. The tiniest tip of the scale. But it was enough to keep the music playing. You feel your body now, made from those survivors. You are the echo of imbalance. The result of a universe that almost canceled itself out. Almost. You inhale. You begin to wonder, what if that 1 in a billion asymmetry had gone the other way? Would the universe be made of antimatter instead? Would someone else, built of positrons and antiprotons, be lying still, asking the same question? It is not a question of right or wrong. Matter did not win by virtue. It simply remained. And antimatter? It did not disappear completely. It became rare. Quiet. A ghost drifting through the cracks of the cosmos. You can still find it, if you know where to look. In thunderstorms, positrons flicker skyward. In space, high above Earth, antiprotons curl through cosmic rays. In particle accelerators, scientists coax antimatter into being, for a heartbeat, a breath, a blink. But it does not last. The world is made of matter. It surrounds the antimatter on all sides. And so, each tiny twin is undone as quickly as it appears. You picture a positron, born in a high-energy collision. It spins into the world like a soap bubble. It meets an electron, and they vanish together. Not into darkness, but into light. Two shadows folding into a glow. This is annihilation. A gentle word for something profound. And yet, you are not afraid. Because in this vanishing is not violence, but symmetry. Completion. A return to light. You begin to see antimatter not as the opposite of life, but as its reflection. A reminder of what else could have been. A presence in absence. And if you let yourself feel deeply, you realize you are never truly alone in the universe. For every particle you hold, there once was a shadow beside it. Brief, beautiful, and gone. You exhale. Imagine a universe where matter and antimatter existed in perfect balance. Where each was kept apart, in quiet harmony. Where their meeting did not mean ending, but renewal. Some scientists wonder, could there be regions of space made of antimatter? Galaxies where stars burn from antiprotons and positrons? Could we ever reach them, or would the first atom of contact erase us both? The question drifts like starlight, slow, soft, unanswered. And perhaps that is the point. Antimatter teaches you to live with questions. To rest in symmetry and not knowing. To understand that even the quietest opposites have meaning. You curl gently inward. You are made of particles that stayed. But you are followed, always, by particles that did not. Their stories are not gone. They live in the equations, in the flashes of energy, in the questions scientists still whisper to the stars. And as you drift into deeper stillness, you ask one last thought. If one tiny difference made you possible, Could another difference, just as small, help explain why anything exists at all? And maybe, just maybe, the early universe holds the answer in its fading light. In the next moment, you turn toward the place where everything began, to the moment the cosmos made its choice. You float now in the warm hush of before stars, before atoms, before time even had a rhythm. This is the moment after the beginning, the breath after the Big Bang. Everything is light. Everything is possibility. The universe expands like a heartbeat, sudden and soft. In that burst, particles and antiparticles are born together. A perfect balance, matter and antimatter, like twin notes in a harmony. They rise and vanish in pulses, colliding, annihilating, releasing energy. It is a dance of creation and disappearance, as if the universe is trying to decide what it wants to keep. And yet, something tilts. You do not see it, not directly. There is no bright sign or sudden rupture. Only a tiny hesitation, a subtle unevenness in a sea of symmetry. For every billion pairs that vanish in light, one extra particle of matter remains. Just one. Quite alone. Left behind when its partner fades. This is not expected. Physics loves balance. Nature favors equations that add up. But here they do not. And that small deviation becomes everything. The stars. The earth turning gently beneath you. All born from that slim imbalance. That quiet decision the universe made, without words, without vote. Scientists call it baryon asymmetry. A technical name, cool and clean. But you feel the emotion it carries. A mystery, ancient and unresolved. You drift through the early universe, where this imbalance begins to matter. The fireball cools. Annihilation's slow. What survives begins to bond, to form. Protons and neutrons find each other. Electrons drift close. Atoms emerge, like notes forming a melody. From the leftovers, the survivors of the great cancellation, the story of matter begins. You imagine holding one of those first protons. It has no memory of its lost twin, and yet, its very existence is because of that loss. This chapter of the universe is written by absence. Not what endured alone, but what did not cancel out completely. And you begin to wonder, what force chose matter? Why not antimatter? Was it chance? A flaw in the fabric? A secret rule written into the math of nature? Some look to CP violation, a break in the mirror, a subtle twist in how particles decay. Others search for hidden processes in the earliest seconds of time, where the rules might have flexed, bent gently toward matter, just enough to make a universe possible. No one knows for sure. The cosmos does not explain. It only offers its result. And you, lying here, breathing in the calm weight of existence, are part of that result. You rest inside the choice. You are what remained. You are the outcome of the day the universe chose. Outside, galaxies swirl in the shape of that decision. Inside you, atoms hum with the same old story. Matter left behind. Matter taking root. Matter dreaming. But still, the question remains. What if the scales had tipped the other way? Would an antimatter universe look different? Would someone be asking this same question, made of all the things you are not, yet still wondering where their mirror had gone? You may never know. And perhaps you do not need to, because part of sleep, part of peace, is accepting what was chosen long before you came to ask. You close your eyes within the dark, not to forget the question, but to let it soften, to let it float in you, like stardust from the earliest fire. And just as your thoughts begin to fade, a flicker of motion stirs again, not in the past, but in the present. Somewhere, in our world of matter, the shadow still leaves traces, and you are about to follow them. You are quiet now, still enough to notice the softest things. A heartbeat, a thought, a memory drifting at the edge of sleep. And in this stillness, something reaches for you. Not a sound, not a light, but a trace. A fingerprint left behind by a particle that should not be here, but is. Antimatter, gone from the fabric of the visible universe, but not completely lost. It lingers quietly. You just have to learn how to listen. You begin in the sky, not the bright sky of noon, but the upper reaches of the atmosphere, where the earth meets space. There, in the flashes of thunderstorms, something strange happens. Lightning climbs upward, and with it positrons, tiny specks of antimatter, are born in the electric rage of a storm. Scientists call them terrestrial gamma-ray flashes. But you, lying here, might think of them as sky whispers. Bright, brief exhalations of a world remembering its other half. Positrons spiral downward, meeting electrons, and in a blink, both vanish into light. Annihilation, a word that sounds like an ending, but often feels like a return. Next you drift higher, above the clouds, beyond the pull of air. Out into space, cosmic rays tumble through the void, carrying with them secrets, among them antiprotons. Their journey is long, their origin uncertain, perhaps from supernovae, perhaps from the decay of dark matter, perhaps from something stranger still. But they exist. You picture a satellite, a machine orbiting far above you. Inside, detectors wait patiently. And every now and then, they catch one. A spark, a trace, proof that antimatter has not left the stage. It has only stepped into the wings. And then back on Earth, you walk softly into a laboratory. The room is silent, humming with magnetic fields. Here, scientists do something wondrous. They make antimatter. In giant accelerators, particles are smashed together at unimaginable speeds. And from the wreckage, antimatter appears. Antiprotons, positrons, even antihydrogen, an antiproton orbited by a positron, a whole antiatom held gently in a magnetic trap. It is delicate, easily undone, but in that moment it exists. You imagine peering into the trap, seeing the ghost of a mirror world, spinning quietly for just a few seconds, and then, gone. Antimatter is not easy to keep. It is too reactive, too wild to touch. But for those few moments, we hold it. And that holding, that attempt to understand what no longer rules the universe, is an act of memory, of reaching back to what almost was. You might wonder, why go to such lengths for something so brief, so rare? Because those traces matter. They tell us that the story is not finished, that the mirror did not shatter, it only faded, and in the right places, in the right conditions, it speaks again. You exhale. You begin to see the universe as something that remembers itself, even when it changes, even when it chooses one path over another, it leaves behind hints of the other road. Antimatter is the memory, the imprint, the soft breath of the twin that vanished. And though it hides in storms, in space, in silent machines, it is never truly gone. You imagine your own body, built entirely of matter, and yet the atoms within you still carry the laws that govern antimatter. You are shaped by its absence, defined by what did not stay. And somehow, that makes your existence even more precious, because you are not just here. You are still here, the trace that did not cancel out, the one that remained. You feel the weight of that gently, not as pressure, but as belonging, as inheritance. And as you lie beneath the ceiling of stars, or the quiet hush of your room, you realize you are made from the rarest decision the universe ever made. Matter stayed, antimatter faded, but the traces, they are still calling. And as you listen to their echoes, question begins to form. Could the tiniest flaw in symmetry, a flicker, a twist, have decided it all? Could the butterfly that tipped the universe have left its wings in the equations? There is a moment just before sleep, when your thoughts become weightless. They drift, not in lines, but in spirals. And in this spiraling space, You begin to wonder how something so small could change the course of everything. You return to the early universe, not to the fire this time, but to the faint tremble within it, a flicker in the math, a butterfly in the equation. Physicists call it CP violation. 3 syllables that carry a soft but seismic shift. C stands for charge. The idea that you could flip a particle's charge, turn positive into negative, and the laws of physics would still hold. P stands for parity. It asks, what if the universe were flipped like a mirror, left and right reversed? Would everything still behave the same? For a long time, scientists believed the answer was yes, that nature plays fair with mirrors and opposites. But then, in 1964, in a quiet experiment with kaons, shy little particles that decay into smaller things, a crack appeared. The kaons did not behave like their antiparticle twins. They favored one path of decay just slightly more than the other. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. But it broke the symmetry. And with that, a door opened. Because if matter and antimatter do not behave in perfect mirror, then maybe, just maybe, that is how the balance tipped. Not with a bang, but with a bias. You picture a teetering scale, perfectly level, until a single grain of sand lands on one side. That is all it took. A preference, a lean, a whisper that said, "This way." And the universe listened. You feel that in your own body. You are here because of imperfection, because symmetry did not hold, because somewhere the rules bent slightly, strangely, beautifully. CP violation is rare. It has been seen in kaons, in B mesons, in particles too fleeting to touch. But the effect is always the same. The mirror breaks, and the reflection does not match. It is like hearing a song played backward, and realizing one note is just a little sharp, enough to change the feeling, enough to shift the meaning. You wonder now, is this all it takes to make a universe? Not force, not fire, but a fault line in perfection? And yet the mystery deepens, because CP violation as we know it is not strong enough to explain all of it, not enough to account for the 1,000,000,000 to 1 imbalance. Between matter and antimatter, there must be more. More butterflies in the field. More ripples in the symmetry. More laws we have not yet learned to hear. You let that idea settle into your chest. The world is not built only on certainty. It is shaped by the almost, the slights, the nearly imperceptible tilts in what might have been. You begin to see your life that way too, formed not just by what was given, but by what was almost equal and was not. Even the tiniest choices leave echoes. Even the smallest violations open space for something new. So you imagine the universe again, right at the start, tipping, turning, listening. A butterfly flaps its wings in a field of particles. A decay goes one way, not the other. A mirror cracks. And somewhere down the long chain of cause and effect, you are born. Lying here, wondering why matter remained. You, a child of imbalance, of almost symmetry. You, a living answer to a question still being asked. The butterfly is not just in the equation. It is in you. In every atom, every breath. You are the outcome of broken mirrors, of paths taken only slightly more than others. And as you feel your breath slow, you realize how comforting that is. The universe did not need to be perfect to make you. It only needed to choose. And it did. But now, another door opens, not in math, but in machines. If we can create antimatter in labs, could we understand it more? Could we learn to hold it even for a moment longer? You follow the question into a place where humans make ghosts, and try to keep them still. You find yourself stepping gently into a place of stillness. But it is not silent. Beneath the quiet hum of metal and wire, there is intention, a whispering curiosity that never sleeps. This is a laboratory, not just any, but one built for capturing shadows. The kind of shadows that vanish the moment you reach for them. The kind that once filled the universe, and now appear only when coaxed with precision and care. Here, humans make antimatter. You walk slowly beneath great rings of magnets and winding tunnels of steel. This is not science fiction. This is real. These machines stretch for miles underground, bending particles with invisible hands, accelerating them until they nearly touch the speed of light. It begins with energy, raw, focused, relentless. Particles are smashed into each other at tremendous speeds. And in the debris, antimatter is born. A positron, an antiproton. Particles that do not belong in this world of matter. Yet here they are. You pause, imagining their first moment. Created in violence, but not angry. Just opposite. Tiny pieces of what might have been. But the world is not welcoming to these visitors. Antimatter cannot touch matter. Even the thinnest air, the faintest atom, would erase it instantly. So we trap it. With magnetic fields. With vacuums so deep they are more empty than space. With instruments that do not touch, but guide. Like invisible shepherds guarding fragile stars. At CERN, in the quiet heart of Europe, scientists slow antiprotons. They do not collide them or destroy them. They keep them still. They cool them down. They bring them close to positrons. And when these two opposites meet without annihilating too soon, they form something astonishing. Antihydrogen. An atom from the mirror universe. Neutral, whole, softly spinning. It does not last long. Seconds, maybe. But in that time, it lives. You imagine floating in front of that trap, watching a single antihydrogen atom glow silently in the dark. It is a whisper from the early universe. A reminder of balance, of symmetry broken and briefly restored. You ask yourself, why go through so much trouble? Why build vast tunnels, use oceans of energy, all to hold something so fleeting? Because in that fleeting moment, the laws of nature speak. When we study antimatter, we do not just study what is gone. We study what is possible. Does antimatter fall the same way as matter? Does it obey the same gravity, the same light? Could it form anti-stars, anti-planets? Even, in theory, anti-life? We do not know yet. But by making antimatter, even briefly, we are asking those questions in the language the universe understands. You take a breath, feeling how careful this work must be. One mistake, one stray molecule, and the antimatter disappears. Not with sound, but with light. A tiny flash. A return. Some dream of using antimatter as fuel. Its energy release is vast. But for now, it takes more energy to make than we ever get back. It is not a power source. It is a message. A message that the universe remembers. That symmetry, though broken, still has echoes. And we, curious creatures made of what survived, can still reach into the past and call out the twin that was lost. You sit now beside a thought. That's somewhere in all of this. In the particle beams, in the traps, in the glowing detectors, there is something deeply human. To chase what vanished. To hold what should not exist. To ask questions not because the answers are useful, but because the asking itself is an act of wonder. You are part of this story. Made of matter. Living in a world of matter, dreaming of what came before. And even though you cannot touch antimatter, even though it slips away at the first breath, you carry it with you, in the mysteries you choose not to forget. You close your eyes inside this laboratory of shadows. And as your thoughts slow, you begin to imagine something else. What would it feel like to be antimatter? To live in a world not made of matter, but of its reflection? You are ready now to walk through that mirror, to feel the symmetry from the other side, to ask what changes and what does not. As you drift into a universe reversed, you step softly now, not with your feet, but with your mind, crossing a quiet threshold, into a mirror world, not made of fantasy, but of possibility. What if everything you know was made not from matter, but from antimatter? What if the atoms in your body were built from antiprotons? and your breath passed through lungs of positrons and antioxygen, would anything feel different? You pause to listen, and to your surprise, the answer is, not much. Not at first. An antimatter world, in theory, could behave almost exactly like ours. Anti-electrons orbit anti-nuclei. Anti-atoms form anti-water, anti-proteins, anti-plants, anti-people. You imagine walking through this reversed world. Its sun glows with anti-hydrogen fire. Its mountains are made of anti-rocks. Its oceans sparkle with liquid antimatter, calm, blue, vast. And the people? They would live and love and breathe, just like you. Because antimatter does not mean evil or unnatural. It is simply flipped, like a photograph developed in negative. Every value inverted, but every shape still true. You picture yourself there. Would you notice? Would the stars feel warmer? Would music sound the same? The answer is yes and no. Because if your world were made entirely of antimatter, and if it were fully separated from ours, there would be no explosions, no annihilations, no vanishing in bursts of light. There would be only balance. This thought is comforting. The universe, it seems, has room for opposites, as long as they are kept apart. But your mind is curious. It wants to know more. Would gravity pull antimatter the same way? Do antiparticles fall down or drift up? We do not yet know. Experiments are being done. Tiny anti-hydrogen atoms released inside magnetic traps. Their movements watched like whispers in a snowstorm. And as you wait for answers, you feel something quiet and deep settle in you. A truth about opposites. That they do not need to clash. That they can be complete mirrors, each whole in their own way. You return now to the idea of symmetry. To the notion that for everything, there exists an equal but opposite possibility. Made of matter. Have a twin, somewhere in theory, made of antimatter. Your structure reflected, your essence unchanged. It is strange and beautiful that the laws of nature are not biased. They allow both. They dream in double. And even though our universe chose one path, it left the other etched into the rules. Every particle's behavior, every equation of motion, every spin and charge, all of it holds the memory of what it could have been. You are a child of this choice, but not a prisoner to it, because your mind, gentle and wondering, can walk across the mirror. And when you do, you find not violence, but symmetry. You drift now in this thought, letting it carry you like wind beneath the wings of silence. And as you float, the question rises, if an antimatter world could exist, could it be out there? Beyond the stars you see? Hidden in the dark between galaxies? You feel the idea begin to glow. Not bright like fire, but soft like a memory returning. And so you turn toward it, to the possibility that somewhere, the twins survived. You drift farther now, beyond the quiet hum of atoms, beyond Earth, beyond even the mirror, out into the deep sky, where silence is not empty, but full of ancient memory. You are floating through the cosmos, following faint threads of light. Starlight, X-rays, gamma bursts, each one a whisper from something violent and vast. Here in the wild edges of the universe, antimatter might still burn, not as memory, not as a particle in a lab, but as fire. You turn your eyes toward the heart of a galaxy. There, spinning at terrifying speeds, is a pulsar, a collapsed star, dense as all the dreams of a sun packed into a single breath. Its magnetic field is fierce, so fierce it tears particles from the vacuum. And in that storm of speed and spin, pairs are born again. Electrons, positrons, matter and antimatter, spiraling away in twin beams of radiation. You picture it, a lighthouse in space, flashing out bursts of pure energy. A pulse, then another, and inside each beam, antimatter rides the wave. This is not the soft trap of a laboratory. This is raw, high-energy birth. the universe remembering how to make twins. You drift deeper, toward the edge of a supernova remnant, the place where a star once ended itself in light. In the afterglow, matter churns and mixes. And again, in the pressure and the heat, positrons appear. Some escape into space, others find electrons, and vanish in a flash of gamma rays. This is happening not just far away, but all the time, even in our own galaxy, even near the center of the Milky Way. A glow of gamma radiation pulses quietly, too soft for your eyes, but real. Scientists have seen it, a shape like a giant hourglass bulging above and below the galactic plane. A soft, diffuse light, the signature of annihilation, where positrons, perhaps from exploding stars or unknown sources, have met their end and left behind this skylit echo. You imagine the center of the galaxy as a place where stars and shadows meet, where antimatter dances briefly in the dark before it returns to light. But it is not only stars. There is a stranger story still, one written in the darkness so deep, even light cannot escape. Black holes, especially the supermassive ones, those that sit like sleeping gods at the heart of galaxies. They eat everything, stars, even time. But before they feed, they twist space into whirlpools. And near those whirling edges, matter is torn apart. High-energy jets shoot outward, carrying particles that no longer behave like they once did. And among them, antimatter may be born. We are not certain, but we suspect, because the universe does not forget how to make its mirror. Even in the most violent places, there is balance. Fleeting, but there. You begin to wonder now, if stars can make antimatter, if galaxies can burn with it, then is it possible that somewhere far beyond, there are whole structures made of it? Whole regions, whole systems, whole galaxies of antimatter. The thought feels both thrilling and cold, because if they exist, they must be hidden, segregated by force or distance or design. Because if matter and antimatter touched, the result would be too bright to ignore. Yet we have not seen such flashes between galaxies. No constant annihilation glow, no signs of cosmic collision. So perhaps, if these anti-galaxies exist, they are far away, tucked into quiet corners, or separated since the beginning by the very expansion of space. You let your mind drift into one of them, an anti-star rising over an anti-planet, anti-light casting anti-shadows on an anti-sea. Not science fiction, just science turned inward. Would anyone there feel what you feel now? Would they look up and wonder, is there something on the other side? You smile softly, because maybe they are wondering about you too. And maybe the universe, in its vastness and patience, holds both of you gently, never letting you touch, but never truly letting you go. You return now, slowly, guided by the hum of your own atoms. The stars behind you, the shadows still glowing in your memory. And even now, you carry their questions in you. Because if the universe still makes antimatter, still burns it into beams and bursts and hourglass glows, then it is not done with the mirror. Not yet. You settle into your breath. You are safe. You are small. You are made of what survived. But you are not alone. And as you rest in that stillness, a new idea stirs gently beside you. Could there be an entire world, perhaps many, where antimatter was not the exception, but the rule? Not hidden in stars or storms, but shaped into galaxies of its own? It is time now to follow that question into the deep unknown, where separation may not mean absence. You are floating now, not through time, not through memory, but through possibility. The air is quiet, the stars blink faintly in the distance, and somewhere beyond them, you begin to wonder if another kind of light is shining. A world made not of matter, but of antimatter, untouched, balanced within itself. Could it exist? Could there be a galaxy where every atom is reversed? where antiprotons form antinuclei, and positrons orbit gently, casting the same kinds of light, but from the other side? The universe, you know, is vast. So vast it stretches imagination beyond shape. Trillions of galaxies. Billions of years. So much space that silence becomes infinite. In all that space, why not? You picture it now. An anti-world, turning quietly in a dark corner of the cosmos. It does not glow red or strange. It does not pulse with warning. It simply is. Its people wake beneath an anti-sun, feel the same warmth on their skin. Their thoughts drift across mirrored skies. Their oceans rise and fall with mirrored tides. Their lives unfold, parallel and peaceful. You feel all rising in your chest, not because it is likely, but because it is possible. And possibility is the softest kind of hope. But if such a world exists, why have we not seen it? Why no signs? No signals? No great burst of annihilation from a meeting point? The answer is likely simple: distance. If matter and antimatter regions formed in the early universe, they may have been pulled apart by expansion, by inflation, by a cosmic decision to keep opposites at a safe remove. So they drifted, like seeds cast in opposite winds, never to touch again. And this distance, this quiet separation, has kept the light from flaring too brightly. Because if even one antimatter galaxy came close to ours, the meeting of intergalactic gases, just the gentle blending of outer clouds, would release unimaginable energy. We would see it, feel it, be unable to forget it. But the sky holds no such scars. So if anti-worlds exist, they must be very far away, or so perfectly sealed that their borders remain untouched. You begin to wonder about communication. Could we speak to an anti-world? Send signals across the emptiness? Would their radio waves reach us? Would we recognize their touch? Their light would look the same. Antimatter emits the same photons, the same colors, the same wavelengths. So if an anti-world sent its hello, for sun and shine, exactly like a matter world, you would not know, unless you reached out and touched it. And touching, in this case, would mean the end. Not in anger, not in war, but in physics. A soft meeting, a shared breath, and then, wait. So perhaps this is why anti-worlds, if they are out there, remain hidden, not because they are afraid, but because the universe has kept them distant, out of reach, but not out of wonder. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the lives of those far-off beings. Not science fiction, not fantasy, just the other half of a question that never got answered. Do they wonder about you? Do they gaze up and see the same stars and feel the same quiet curiosity? Could there be another world, one that is just like ours, but reversed? You smile at the thought, not of aliens, but of symmetry, a balance, of the great cosmic patience that might allow opposites to exist, side by side, never touching, always wondering. You are beginning to see now that antimatter is not just a substance. It is a story of loss and survival, of echoes and reflections, of what we cannot see, but still feel in the shape of things. You breathe in. The air around you is made of matter, but your thoughts are free to drift beyond what is and into what might have been. That is where anti-worlds live. Not in the glare of discovery, but in the soft pulse of possibility. And as you prepare to rest, to let this chapter close, you hold a final, gentle truth. The universe may be one, but it holds room for two. And in that space between opposites, in the silence where neither dominates, a final question waits quietly. If antimatter is only part of the story, what else is out there, unseen, unknown, yet shaping everything we are? You begin to turn inward now, toward the silence itself. You are still now, weightless, not because you are drifting, but because everything around you, Everything within you has softened. You have walked through shadows, stared into mirrors, listened to stars whisper of what was almost forgotten. Now you return, not to answers, but to silence. Because silence is not absence. It is what holds everything in place. It is the pause between opposites, the breath between equations, the space where symmetry breaks, and something new begins. You are made of matter. Your hands, your breath, your bones, all carved from the side of the universe that stayed. But what shaped you was also what did not stay. Antimatter is not only the twin that vanished. It is the silence that surrounds you, the ghost in the mirror, the shape of the question itself. You begin to feel it in deeper ways. When you breathe, you are breathing the remains of imbalance. You are alive because something tiny leaned, just slightly, toward matter. But the quiet where antimatter once was, that quiet is still here. In every corner of your body, there is room for what could have been, not as fear, not as regret, but as memory. And memory in physics is not like memory in people. It is not stored in time. It is written into structure, into the rules that everything follows. The laws of the universe still know how to make antimatter. They do not forget. They just no longer choose it. You sit with that. The idea that every atom in you is not the only version that could have existed. That somewhere in the fabric, the possibility of another path still ripples. Softly, you think of all the moments that brought you here. Not just the cosmic ones, the human ones too. How small changes, the choice, a pause, a glance, shift everything. This is the silence between symmetries. It is not empty. It is alive with potential. It is where the universe does not erase what it chose against, but carries it quietly. You feel this in the dark of your room, where your heartbeat sounds like a question, and your breath is an answer that keeps changing. Antimatter teaches you that balance does not mean sameness, that harmony does not mean stillness, that the universe, in all its brilliance, thrives on a slight imperfection. You do not have to be flawless to exist. You only have to tip gently toward becoming. Somewhere out there, a positron curls in a thunderstorm. An antiproton spins through a laboratory ring. A star burns just hot enough to make a fleeting twin. And here you are, a quiet presence, wrapped in the consequence of choice. Not your choice, but one made long before you had a name. A whisper of asymmetry in a newborn universe. You are not here because the universe is perfect. You are here because it is not. And in that broken symmetry, you were given space. To grow, to wonder, to dream. You rest now in that understanding. That silence is not the opposite of sound, but the shape it takes before it speaks. That antimatter is not the enemy of matter, but its echo, its question, its other half. And maybe, just maybe, the universe is still listening to both. You begin to fade gently into sleep. The questions are not answered. They do not need to be, because it is not the answer that brings comfort. It is the asking. You let go of the mirror, not because it is no longer needed, but because it is already part of you. Its absence is your presence. Its silence is your breath. And in this quiet, you finally understand, you are not made only of particles. You are made of pause, of almost, of could have beens. And that is more than enough. Somewhere, even now, a lone particle flickers into being. An echo of symmetry, briefly remembered. The universe turns once more. And as it does, so do. Toward dreams, toward rest, toward everything the silence still holds.